Welcome to Improv Your Parenting, the art of turning parenting into playing. Today we're joined by Jason Miller. Jason is an executive coach, facilitator, trainer, and improviser. He strives to apply improv everywhere he goes, whether in his coaching sessions or in line at the grocery store. He likes pineapple on pizza and doesn't mind shoveling snow. What is your relationship with kids? Are you a parent, a teacher, a caregiver? How do you interact with children?
Mostly as a parent. So I have three children. I have a soon to be 14-year-old boy. I have a 12-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl. So that's my primary interaction. They're all around me all the time. The teenagers are getting into the place where they just go into their room and shut the door. But my 7-year-old's still very active and wants to hang out.
That sounds like it's both a lot and also not as much as it used to be, but
Yeah,
in other ways than it could be.
definitely. I'm definitely seeing that shift
Mhm.
that people talk about, and it's tough, but it's happening. Yeah.
So one of the first things I want to know is we're here to talk about how improv has influenced your parenting journey. I'd love if you could tell me a story about how you realized improv is helpful for interacting with your kids.
Yeah, great question. And it's funny because I had been doing applied improv primarily for a long time. I started in the mid 2000s, really fell in love with it as a facilitator and a trainer and a coach using applied improv in my work, and big fan of the benefits of applied improv to the professional place, to the workplace, to personal and professional development. It was one day I noticed I was talking to my daughter, and I think at the time she was 5 or 6. So it was only a couple of years ago, and I was talking to her about something, and I noticed that every response that she gave me was like negative, like she went to the negative. Whatever it was, I would say, we're going to go get ice cream. And she'd say, they're not going to have the flavors I like.
Oh.
Or then we're going to go to the park. And she would say, too many people are going to be there. So I'm not going to be able to use the toys that I like. And I thought, my gosh, this is really like she's catastrophizing every little thing. And I thought, that's really unfortunate because she's a kid. She should be happy about stuff. And then I thought, wait a minute, there's an improv game for this. And I was like, in this moment. So I taught her, fortunately, unfortunately, said, okay, let's play a little game. I said, I'm going to say what I say, and then you can say, unfortunately, and then your thing. And then I'd say, fortunately. We went back and forth and said, okay, let's switch. And she loved that game, demanded to play it constantly. And so I'd seen, since we've been playing it, we've been playing pretty consistently. I've seen her now when she says something, whatever negative, I'll say, fortunately, and then she'll fill in the fortunately part. So we'll do that, reframing it. She really loves it. And I think it's helped a lot. So that was the realization, which I kicked myself because I should have figured this out sooner. But that the same stuff that I use with my clients and my participants, of course, would work on my children because it's all about being human.
When you had that realization, did you start being like, okay, so now we're going to start doing improv games? Or was it more of a natural, oh, here's a situation in which this thing might help?
I basically just went into, hey, kids, we're going to play improv games. And so, yeah, we're going to there. And I said, hey, I haven't been doing this. I need to do this with you. This is great stuff.
Yeah.
And my 12-year-old son, he's a theater kid. He loves theater. He took to it immediately. He was
Really?
super excited. The then 13, now soon to be 14-year-old was okay, but he didn't want to do anything that didn't make him look cool.
Yeah.
And so for him, he liked the story games, like the one word at a time or last word story games, but he didn't want to play anything that was too silly. So that's his deal. But then I've been working on him lately because he loves to play piano and he wants to play jazz. And so I explained to him the other day, I said, jazz is improv. He rolled his eyes and I listened. And so I pulled up some articles and things so he could see that it just wasn't me trying to trick him into playing games. And he was kind of like, okay. So I think he's coming around to seeing the benefits of applied improv, at least to his creative pursuits. So I'm hoping that'll bear fruit later on.
You bring up a point here that I think is important to just make a distinction about is improv isn't always about looking silly or being
Right.
big and crazy.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just about creating in that moment, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How have you helped them realize you don't have to blow up in order to make this work?
So the games I've taught them are the less silly games, and they like those better.
Yeah.
with one exception, I think, but I don't know if it's an exception. They really love the gibberish games. And I think because they love that performance element, like Gibberish Poet, for example, is one of their all-time favorites. And let's play Gibberish Poet. And they just like to outdo each other with the gibberish. I played recently Gibberish Translator or Gibberish Dictionary, as it's known, where you have three. And so my 14-year-old will play with us, where he'll give the word clock. And then my 12-year-old and my 7-year-old will fight over who gets to give the gibberish word. And then the third one will give the definition. And so they like those games a lot. But that was the thing, like introducing the yes and games. They love the yes and, like even the simplest ones. And I thought kids, and this was another assumption I made that was incorrect. I'm like, they're kids. They're going to want to play those highly physical games. And so I was looking those up and they didn't like those as much. And what they really liked were the word-based story kind of games. The ones where like the last word rhyming type games, or one word at a time is a hit as well. There's another one. I'm trying to think of the name of it and I can't remember, but it's where it's word association, where you say a word and then you start word associating around to see if we can get back to that word. They really like that one, like in the car. They always want to play them in the car when we're on long drives.
It's a great way to entertain folks without
It
having
is.
to bring a board or anything like that. Definitely. Have they expressed why they're not into as much the physicality ones as they are into the sort of mental and
None of them are really athletes. I think they're just not physical. Yeah. All three of them. My older one plays soccer, but he's the one that doesn't love the games. So maybe I should introduce him to some of the more physical games. He might like
Yeah.
that. Good idea. I'm going to try that.
As long as they don't embarrass him. I think though that brings up a really good point is that you're focusing the games based on what they enjoy doing, based
Mhm.
on who they are as people. How do you test that? Did you try different things and be like, okay, this one isn't working?
I'll learn a new game and I'll say, hey, let's try this game. And they're always keen to try. They'll play it and then they'll be very honest. They'll say, I don't like that. And they'll say, let's play Park Bench or let's play Gibberish Translator or whatever. And so I'm like, okay. So I'm always introducing, but then sometimes they like them. I tried Alphabet Skip, which is a little bit more complex, especially for the 7-year-olds, where you try to build the story, but you have to eliminate, you can't say words that start with a certain letter. And I thought this is going to be too hard for her, but she loved it. She
Really?
loved the
Wow.
challenge of it. And it's almost too hard for me because I keep messing up when I play it. They always want to play in the car and I'm like concentrating on driving.
Yeah.
And then I like say the word, but they love it when I mess up.
Of course they do, because dad is not fallible.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's glorious. And I think that brings up another thing is how do you sort of balance between I'm dad, there's some authority here, and also we're being playful and you know me as the playful person.
Yeah.
Wait, mom is playful too. I don't know. But like you could all be playful together, but how do you balance that? I'm a parent, but I'm also your playmate.
I think context defines it. Like we're going to play games. Usually like we say, okay, let's play a game. We're usually in the living room or in the car. Sometimes we're out and about and we'll do some. We did one the other day. We were at the bus stop. I take my daughter to the bus every morning for school and the bus was late and the kids were starting to go crazy. And a lot of the parents had just dropped their kids off. And so it's all these elementary kids. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's only 3 adults here. And so I got all the kids together and I played the count to 20 game.
Nice.
And they loved it, but it kept them all in one place. It kept them occupied until the bus showed up.
That's perfect.
But I think at home, yeah, it does. Like when it comes time for discipline or serious conversations,
Yeah.
I think they will generally know, okay, this is not a time to play. My 7-year-old though, she's very manipulative and she will try to hijack. This has happened a few times. And most recently, I was upset with her behavior and I was like, we have to have a serious talk. And I got down on a level. I said, now you listen to me. This is important. There are 3 things you need to understand. And she said, 3 things, 3 things, 3 things. And she like totally hijacked. So I played 3 things with her. And then I said, no, we got to have a serious conversation. So sometimes it does bleed into it, but I haven't felt like it's done so in a disruptive way. I haven't felt like it's been like, why aren't you being fun now? They know when it's time to be serious and they know when it's time.
It's funny that your daughter did that because did that diffuse the situation
It
at
did.
all?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it completely changed my emotional state. And so, of
Yeah.
course, I didn't share this with her, but monitoring my own emotional state and my self-talk, it completely blew, like I was upset and it completely diffused it. Like
Wow.
I had to laugh. I just couldn't not laugh. I felt myself trying not to laugh, and I'm just like, let it go. And
Yeah.
so I laughed and I said, played, and I said, okay, let's play three things because she loves that game. And since then, anytime I've said any number of things, like if I've said six things we need to think, she'll be six things. We're gonna play six. She turns it into that. But she was, yeah, I think if she's astute enough to understand that she diffused the situation of that game, then my hat's off to her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what a great demonstration of using a skill that she's learned in order to solve an
Right.
emotional situation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Which was the original intention I had with teaching her, unfortunately in the first place.
Mhm.
So if this is the culmination of that, then that's pretty great.
Success.
Time will tell. Time will tell. The experiment is still running, but I hope so.
I want to take a slight detour and ask you about your journey growing up. Were your parents playful with you, or what were the influences of your parenting style? And did you come to this through that experience or on your own?
That's a great question. I've never really reflected on that. I think they had fun, but they weren't playful like improvisers tend to be playful. We didn't play make believe or pretend games with the parents. I had a younger brother. We did that. We had cousins. We did that with them. But with the parents, my father was in law enforcement. He was very stoic, but he could be silly from time to time.
Mhm.
I would always see the silliness come out in him, and I'd be like, "Oh wow, there's some silliness." My mom was pretty strict, but like gentle and fun. Like she liked to laugh, but she wouldn't play an improv game. And so I came into improv as an adult. I didn't know, but I did theater in high school and college, and then came into improv later through that experience. So I think I haven't, yeah, this is good. This is good. My parenting style, I think, is more influenced by my values, I would say. There are some aspects of the things that I felt were missing. Of course, I was raised by boomers, and it was a different kind of generation. And I feel like, yeah, there were some things missing that I tried really hard to give my kids. One of those is the gift of present. I'm very conscious about that. And improv helps a lot there because improv's all about bringing your presence. And so that's helped me a lot. Improv has helped me be a better parent without me realizing it until now,
Yeah.
because I'm focused on giving the gift of presence, making sure I'm completely there, completely present with them. That I try to give them the most gracious response I can give them.
What does that look like? I love where you're diving into with this, and I want to go farther. Can you give me an example of what presence is in that interaction?
What I d- it, when they it's a practice, so
Yeah.
it takes a little effort, but I try always to accept what they're offering as if it were an offer like an improv. So if they come to me with whatever they're thinking about, whatever they're talking about, sometimes it's silly, sometimes it's mundane, sometimes I don't like it. Straight up. My 12-year-old loves rap music and I hate rap music. 13, soon to be 14, is getting into opera. I
Huh?
hate opera. It's a real challenge, but it's also a great way to practice. So when they come to me, they want to talk to me about these interests. And I absolutely have. And it's not that I'm not that I'm disinterested. I dislike these things. So I treat them as an offer. And so my son comes to me and he says, "Oh, I listened to this. I listened to La Boheme and it was really great. And there was this aria and he like tries to sing it. And I put myself in a position where I am improvising, accepting his offer, ready to completely accept it and yes, and whatever he's saying. And I'll say yes. And what about that aria really struck you? And I'll lean into it as if we're doing a scene. We have a great conversation. And so
Yeah.
this is something, and I do have a 12-year-old with rap, and that's difficult, even more difficult. I love classical music. I can at least vector my son away into classical music, but with the rap thing, it's really hard. But I think that's something that's always been missing when in my growing up. One of the memories I have is my father, me trying to connect. I desperately wanted a feeling of connection, a sense of connection. And I remember striving for that. And he would, for example, he would go on patrol because he was a cop. And I'd ride along. We're from North Dakota, so it's safe to do. In 36 years of law enforcement, he never drew his weapon. So we would go on these prairie roads, driving, patrolling. And I remember feeling, trying to come up with something to connect some topic of conversation. And so that memory has very much influenced my parenting. and me wanting to always give them that feeling and them not having to strive for it and reach for it and grasp for it. And improv's helped me a great deal because I can connect with anyone on anything if I think about it as an offer. I don't know about the topic. I don't have to like the topic. An offer, and I'm ready to yes and your offer, that I'm coming with full presence. I'm listening. I'm leaning in. And I'm thinking of a question I can ask to keep the conversation going. And so I think that's probably the most drastic example of how improv has really helped me be a better parent.
And has that allowed you to also better understand who your children are, what they're interested in? Can you
Absolutely.
talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. Because in those conversations, I'm learning a ton that I wouldn't learn if I didn't ask the questions, if I didn't lead it. If I was dismissive of it or said, don't talk to me about it, I'd be missing this aspect. What, for example, my 12-year-old with the rap, what does he like about it? What is that he enjoys? Because it's negative. The lyrics are not positive, right? He loves he loves the sound of the voice and the way the voices sound. He loves creativity. He loves the rhyming. And so I've been able to understand that's what he loves to do. He loves the idea of performance. I've been able to encourage him in the theater. I'm encourage him to write his own lyrics, to write poetry, to even say, hey, write a rap and make it like a positive rap. And that's not, well, let's just see if I said it's never been done. See if it can do.
Exactly.
And
Or you
so,
can do fortunately, unfortunately raps.
right. Exactly. Yeah. And we'll do that sometimes with gibberish poet. It'll turn into a rap.
Very cool.
If it does. So I think I feel like I understand him at a depth. And then when he's upset about something, like he also from school, he's upset about something, I feel like I better understand where he's coming from, what the other person doesn't understand or didn't understand.
Does that tap into sort of how you listen best as well? Or have you had to change who you are in order to do that effectively?
It helps me listen better. And obviously listening is such an important thing. We know this, we talk about this, we teach this, but sometimes we catch ourselves not doing it. And so I feel one part of this helps keep it present, keep it in front of my face. I know, hey, I need to listen fully. I need to listen like an improviser. I need to be fully present. That helps in my coaching, obviously, but also with facilitating, listening to the participants, trying to understand what's not being said so that I can illuminate those things. And so I feel like the improv principles help me 100% help be better in that. Have I always been a good listener? Probably not. I've got a pretty healthy ego. I'm pretty focused on my own experience most of the time. So that improv has helped me break out of that so that I can offer that to people. But I do catch myself from time to time because I'm human. I realize, oh wait, okay, stop, accept the offer, and that's the kind of the mantra I'll use in my head when I'm talking to somebody and I'm like, oh, I'm not listening. All right, what's the offer? What's the opportunity?
That brings up two things in my mind, and I'm going to hopefully remember both. But the first one is you talked about how your kids are different themselves. One has their own perspective on things. And chances are that leads to a different interaction with each child based on who they are. Can you talk a little bit about how you adjust based on with whom you're having that interaction?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's just understanding what the offer is. With each one, it's different. With my daughter, it's much more emotional. She wants to talk about how she feels, how things make her feel, her feelings. She's learning, trying to help her navigate that. She has a lot of feelings. She's a big feeling person, and I want to encourage that. I don't want to discourage that. And so using the improv principles and using that presence, I'm able to explore those with her and help her get into a place where she can understand. I'm surreptitiously trying to teach her the principles of emotional intelligence. Over time, it's slow going, but we'll get there. With my 12-year-olds, he's got such a strong desire to be seen and appreciated. Like he wants to be a famous YouTuber or a famous actor. He wants. So I'm able to listen for that and help him understand those feelings and help him understand like where are some ways he can see. Like instead of saying you'll never make it to the NFL, I'm not going to say that, but what I'll say, I don't think he's going to be the next Hollywood screen star. But at the same time, can I vector him into activities that would feed that? Can join the speech team so he can be up in front of people giving a speech, or with theater as well. And we rolled the dice. He's 12. he hasn't done a lot, but there's a very robust community theater in where I live, and it's pretty legit. They do some really hard shows. They do some big shows. Like they did Amadeus, they did Cats,
Oh,
they
wow.
did Chicago. It's wow. These folks are really serious. And they put out a call. They were going to do a Christmas Carol and they needed some kids. And I was like, oh, and I want to do this. My first thought was, you'll never make it. They've got their own people. They've got their own clique.
Mhm.
You haven't done a ton. You're just a kid. And that was a moment where I had to realize inside my head, this is where you apply those principles. And I will drive you to the audition. Yes. And I will fill out the forms. Yes. And I will help you prepare for your audition. And he got in. We're so happy that I was to arrest that initial thought, that initial
Yes.
thought, that limiting thought. And I was able to grab that before it came out of my mouth, because that would make me the kind of parent I don't want to be. And so that's an example of where improv principles absolutely help me understand him better, what he needs better, and respond to him better. Even if initially I think, oh, this isn't a good idea. He's going to be crushed. He's going to be depressed. He's not going to make it. He's going to be sad. Because that's where the motivation was behind that. I want to protect him. But then I realized improv isn't about protecting. It's
No.
about exploring. It's about expanding. And I need to teach him that it's okay to try stuff. And if it fails, we'll be ready. We'll be ready. Hugs and the cookies and whatever we need. He made it. And so here we are. And so I feel, and with my older son as well, because he recently announced that he wants to go to Juilliard. Everyone's going big in this house, and we will, let's look around and see what we need to do to help prepare.
Totally. Yeah. Wow.
And so I think we want to protect his parents. We want to shield them.
Mm.
And we have to not do that. We're going to grow. And I think that's where applying the improv principles of parenting really help
Yeah.
as individuals, because each of them want a different thing.
You've mentioned principles multiple times, and I think I'm not taking you up on that offer. Can you talk about what those principles are? Maybe people don't know what those are. So
Yeah, there's a bunch. Yeah, there's a bunch. We talk about yes and a lot, which I think is, for those of us who do this a lot, it becomes kind of jargon. So we have to pause sometimes and remember that might sound strange to people, but the concept of whatever is coming at you, accepting that, just accepting it. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to buy into it. You just have to accept, okay, this is happening. This is happening. And then taking that in as an offer, we say an offer. So whatever you're saying to me is an offer, even if I don't agree with it, even if I don't like it, what can I do with that? So accepting it is the yes part. I'm going to accept that this happened, and then I'm going to build. How can I build on it in some way? And so if we're in a disagreement about something, what that looks like is me building on to try to help you see my side, right? Or helping you explore your side to see what might. So depending on the context, the and can be anything. But the point is, with the principles, you're always building. You're bringing up, you're building something, accepting and building. And I think that's that's one of the main ones. The presence one as well. You can't really fully do that without giving full presence to the situation. We would say the scene, but that scene could be a conversation with somebody. And so active listening, being present, am I being fully present, taking in the offer, and then making your partner look good, which is another principle that I really like. And so that helps me a lot with parenting and in life, because it's like, what's the most gracious response I can give? What can I say that will help lift this person up, even if it's a negative situation, or even if I'm disagreeing with them? How can I lift them up? Those are three kind of the main ones, I think.
you mentioned before that you're a human, you have an ego as well. How have you been able to have that part of you step back a little and say, I'm going to lift this other person up. I'm going to give them what they need rather than take what I need or what I think I want.
Yeah, and that's another great improv principle. So Keith Johnstone, who's one of the big main improv founders, wrote a book called Impro, which is a great book. And one of the parts is devoted to status. And what Keith Johnstone writes in there is that every conversation is a status conversation. So I'm either potentially lifting you up or I'm lifting myself up. So I have a choice in every conversation. I can either lift the person I'm talking to up, or I can lift myself up. And so for someone with a healthy ego like myself, having that in the front of my mind when I'm in a conversation, do I want to lift them up, or am I lifting myself up? And able to say, what would lift them up? I don't want to raise my status here. I want to raise their status. And so thinking about the way I phrase things, or the way I talk, or my response is it a question tends to raise the other person's status, a statement tends to raise my status.
Mhm.
And so turning statements into questions can
Mhm.
help.
When you're interacting with your kids, you have that on your mind in every interaction as much as you can.
That's the practice. Yeah.
And so then does that then help you stay present?
Yes, absolutely. Because it helps me do that meta analysis. What's
Yeah.
happening? Noticing them, noticing their emotions. Are they happy? Let's keep them happy. Are
Yeah.
they sad? Let's dig in and figure out what's going on. And keeping that in the front of my mind is critical, I think, to successfully doing that. And I don't always do it right every time. But
So when have you done it wrong? What does that look like?
when I'm really upset, we try to be gentle parents, but I don't know when I go into the room and they're like beating on each other, I have to yell to get them to stop, to get them to notice me. So then okay, I have to raise my status. I have to be the power figure, the authority figure, because either they're doing something that's unsafe. Usually it's safety. If a kid is going to run across the street without looking and I yell, stop, and then they're like, freeze, and it's okay. I definitely raised my status, but that was to keep them safe. So those are the right ways. You asked the wrong ways. But yeah, when I fail at that, when I'm frustrated and tired and I snap at them or say something that I realize raises my status unnecessarily, they know I'm their dad. I don't need to remind them. And so I think it's silly sometimes when I reflect on times when I've just wanted control situation, or I didn't want to lose control of the situation. And or I just there was my son came in the other day and asked me for something. He wanted a new microphone he wants to vlog. And so he wanted a new microphone and he sent me a link for this microphone on Amazon. And I was like, no, we just had Christmas. I'm not going to buy you a bunch of stuff now. And he was upset and left. And I reflected later. It's like, why in the world did I respond that way? I wanted control. I wanted to assert my authority. I wanted to raise my status. Did. And I've got an upset kid. But I didn't really sit him down and say, here's the why. Let me show you what a family budget looks like. Like I missed a bunch of opportunity thing to really understand what he wanted it for and why, and then maybe explore ways he could raise the money to do that. And I had this conversation later, but reflecting on that moment, I was just feeling like being the dad, being the no. I want to say no, but I think, and that's the danger. That's the humanness, the dark side. So I went back in later. I felt really guilty after I analyzed this and went back in and said, hey, sorry, let's talk through this. And he came up with 3 great ways to raise money to buy this thing for himself. So it ended up working out well. But had I not reflected and I not had these desires to be better than just, no, that's frivolous expense, like Ebenezer Scrooge. And he was Peter Cratchit. So he knew. But yeah, so I think there's times like that. Or with my 13, soon to be 14-year-olds, he's very much trying to explore his autonomy at this stage of puberty. He has a desire to take on every extracurricular activity that interests him. I know there's no time. I know that time is a thing. It's a reality. Yeah. But I noticed when I would say, no, that's not a good idea because you're not going to have time. He got really upset, really. I could see the rage inside him. And I realized it's his autonomy. I'm attacking his autonomy. And he's trying to learn how to use his autonomy because he's growing up. This is happening. It's a natural process. And so using the principles of improv later, after I did that a few times and realized I'm creating this relationship that I don't want to have this hostility, being able to say, okay, all right, what does that look like with your schedule? Let's get the schedule out and let's plot it out. Let's map it out and see. Then realize, oh, wait, I don't have time.
So it has to be self-directed experience.
Self-directed. And so lowering my status, taking it as an offer, yes, anding it, yes, and let's plot it on the calendar, yes, and let's take a look at it on the schedule, helped him realize in his own way, oh yeah, I'm not going to do this. And then he was fine.
What's your priority for being a parent in terms of what are you trying to achieve as a parent?
I think obviously keeping them safe is the first one, which can be a blessing and a curse. I think one thing my wife and I talk about a lot is helping them find their thing has really been a super big priority for us. We really want them to find their thing, the thing they can invest in, the thing they can really learn to love and enjoy. And so we have more conversations about that than probably any other aspect of parenting. So I think that's probably the priority. I really want them to find their thing. And I want them to obviously find good friends within the realm of that thing. That's a priority. And then just preparing them for the world, I think is
Yeah.
a big part of it too. That's a big motivator for a lot of the conversations we have and a lot of things is helping them teach them the lessons. Sometimes they do study Stoic philosophy. I'm a big fan of Stoic philosophy. So I'll often think, okay, if I die today, what do I need to impart to them
Mm.
today will help them make it? And so what life lesson have I not shared with them or what resource have I not given them? So that way, if I die in my sleep, at least at least they learned something. So I do tend to go through my day thinking about things that way as well,
Yeah.
just because I want them to understand how the importance of relationships, the importance of understanding people and using improv principles to guide your relationships and guide your conversations and things like that is
Yeah.
probably the biggest priority because the technology, obviously we hear a lot about technology and its effect on youth and its effect on people. I just want them to be able to have a conversation with a human. That would be my victory. If my children grow up to be adults who can have a conversation with somebody, they'll be fine.
It's fascinating you bring up relationships because I've heard that from other people as well. Is that sort of the big thing is if I can enable you to have positive relationships,
Yeah.
you'll figure the rest out.
Yeah, exactly. And originally our answer to it, and I think a lot of parents came to this answer was we're just going to limit technology, right? Technology is the enemy. So we're going to limit technology. And then we realized that they have to be fluent in technology.
Yes.
They are entering a world that is technological that we did not. We were not in that world. They are in that world. They have to know this stuff.
Yeah.
So they also have to, but we want them to be able to have conversations. We want them to be able to relate to people. We have to do both. So it's a yes and situation. So how do we combine the giving them enough freedom to explore technology, to understand technology with the relationship side so that they can do both? And so that was a realization we came to as well. And we've been working on how to integrate it. Don't want them just sitting in their room with the door shut on their screens all day, but we also don't want them not to be able to understand how that stuff works.
That's a tough balance to
It
find.
is.
If you find that answer, let me know because
The thing is at school, they got it at school, technology at school. And obviously the schools are using it. We can't, nope, only worksheets at home. They don't have worksheets. They have to do their work on their computer. Okay, there's a screen in my house.
it sounds like it's very much about how you use what it is rather than thing itself.
I'm teaching them the right way and the safe way to use it.
It's, I guess, a positive relationship with that
Yeah.
you do as well as with people. What relationship do you have with people, with technology? I want to bring this to a conclusion. And one of the things I'd love to ask is if you were talking to a parent who's never done improv before, what would you offer them as a step into this space?
Yeah. That's a great question. I would definitely encourage any parent who's never done improv to explore the improv principles and think about how they can make their parenting more effective because they absolutely will. There's a lot of resources. There's a ton of resources out there. There are a lot of people that are in the applied improv world that would be happy to meet with you and talk to you. If you're one of those parents, there's great books out there, so many books. And there's websites, I would say, but definitely get into it, explore it. The improv principles are very simple. They're very basic, but they're very powerful. And so it's not hard. And we're not talking about getting up on stage in front of your friends. One of the things I get a lot when I start talking, like, oh, improv, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get up on stage. I don't get up on stage. So don't worry.
It's not required.
It's not required. It's not. As Shakespeare said, all the world is a stage. Really, we're on it right now.
Absolutely.
John Stone points out in Improv as well, which is a great book. Probably not the best book for beginners, and resources. I don't have any at hand.
I think what you said there is really useful is just understand what the principles are and how you can apply them.
Yeah, just find them and apply them and try it and treat it like play, treat it like an experiment, treat it like
Sure.
fun. But you can apply the principles in a conversation, even if the other person isn't aware.
Mhm.
So you can yes and anybody. You can accept anyone's offer. You can be present, right? And so you can practice this all the time. And so it's not daunting. It's not difficult. It doesn't require boot camp. Like Izzy Gazelle says, there are no real world negative consequences to doing it.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Jason. This has been fantastic conversation. Hopefully helpful to a lot of people.
Thank you.